everybody, welcome to Painting Video Day. A lot of you have requested to see my painting process. Quite honestly, I do skip that almost every time. And it's not just with video tutorials. I've been skipping the painting steps pretty much since I started sharing my projects. So hopefully I do alright, because I'm not used to talking about this. And it's not because I have any kind of proprietary painting techniques. I just have very bad habits, and I don't really want to spread that. But it's quick, easy, and cheap, usually. I like cheap. So I know that's really appealing to a lot of people, especially if you just painted 300 dudes for a tournament. The last thing you want to do is spend 5 hours painting a piece of terrain. I get it. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to share what I know, kind of in a couple different videos. This one is just going to go over the basics of, like, the supplies that I use, some origins of where I learned some of these techniques, and then in future videos I'm going to show you how I apply it to terrain. In other videos you've seen me use a spawning pool on how to create stonework and some water effects, and I have another one here that we can go over, and you can just watch me paint from scratch. So that'll be another video coming up. First, let's talk about what I use. A lot of it's pretty standard stuff. I have, like, spray paint for priming, for coating large areas. There's nothing special about the brands I buy, it's just what's on sale. These happen to be Krylon and Rust-Oleum. These are kind of nice because they say they cover twice as much in one coat. So if I don't have to go outside and spray it any more than I have to, that's going to be appealing to me. I also like the words bonds to plastic. A lot of times I've used, I don't know, like the little plastic Easter eggs that you get out of vending machines. Sometimes I have problems with the paint sticking to that, so bonds to plastic is very appealing to me, and metal. Plastic and metal are two things that I kind of look for. So I use that to cover things, large things. Nothing that's foam, no insulation foam or foam core poster board. The aerosol from the can will melt your foam. I know they make some now that are like water propellants or something that are supposed to not disintegrate foam. I've never tried them myself. I'm kind of interested to see how they'd work, but this is what I use for now. If I do have to cover large areas of foam, I just mix up craft paint, regular acrylic craft paint, with some water and spread it out. I usually also include a lot of PVA glue in that kind of mixture to help it not only stick to the foam, but provide some extra stability and protection from handling it. So I have those craft paints, not only for doing a base coat or covering large areas. That's also what I use just for highlighting and shading, and you can water this down and make it into a wash. And it's usually like $2 for a little bottle. So I also have this problem while I'm building. There's always this little voice in the back of my head that says, it's only terrain. Like, why would you spend a lot of money on something when it's just terrain? As if terrain in some fashion is less important than other things on the table, and I know that's really weird coming from somebody who builds terrain. Like, I should be pumping this shit up like it's super cool and you should spend hundreds of dollars on it, especially shit I make and sell, because I like money. But I can't get rid of that voice in my head. So I just keep the cheap stuff on hand, and that's mostly what I use. The problem with that is the pigment count of this paint is really low, especially like on the reds. If you do a coat, you can still see through it because there isn't a lot of colored powder in the mix. That's why a lot of people, professional people, are using professional miniature paints on their models, especially if they're for competition or something. So if it comes down to like freehanding scroll work on a banner or, writing little words on a sign, I go to the high quality model paint because there's a higher density of pigments in these, and then I won't have to go over fine details more than once to get it to show up. It's like a one and done kind of situation. And with freehand work, I have a real hard time going back over it and getting it right the second time. So that's what I use for really high detailed areas. Oops. I also have like this professional model wash that I love. It's Citadel, the sepia wash. I love the color and I can't really replicate it with anything else, so I use this a lot too. Actually, it does look a lot like a wood stain. If you put this wash on a wood, it gives it a really nice kind of glazed honey color. This shit's expensive and wood stain isn't. So I'm actually going to start a different video down the road talking about what I do with wood and wood stains, because I actually never really paint wood. I don't like the look of it for like weathered treatments or like mahogany furniture or something. I actually do stain wood as you would for full-size pieces. So we'll talk about that in a different video, but if you ever have to do very small details of wood, this sepia wash looks gorgeous. Okay. For metallics, I also go to the professional model paint, either Vallejo or the Citadel colors. The Privateer press paints are very nice too for metallics. I do have some cheapy craft paint metallics, but they don't do very good. I don't like them at all. Probably that pigment density problem. Let's see what else I use. I think that's it for paints. Brushes, I really like the Golden Talcon bristles. They're usually fairly cheap. They're just craft brushes, nothing fancy. You can get them at Hobby Lobby or Michael's or whatever. There's the white ones too that I don't really remember what their bristles are made out of, but they're very similar to the Golden Talcon. For the fine detailed stuff like I was talking about, I do use the super expensive professional miniature paintbrushes. This one's the Winsor Newton, and this one is Master's Touch. Usually I don't get them though until they're pretty well used. Brand new brushes like this go straight to the husband's desk for painting his miniatures so that he can get the best usage out of them before I ruin the crap out of these brushes, because I do. I always do. I don't take very good care of my brushes. I should, but I don't. So I get them after they're well damaged. so that's okay. I can still work with that. Another thing I like to use for applying paint are natural sea sponges. You can get these at the craft store too, in the paintbrush aisle, I think, usually. These are great for like stamping in texture for grass or rocks. You just load up the sponge and just... Kitty's hungry. You just load up the sponge with paint and then basically stamp it on. So a couple good things to remember while you're doing that is to rotate it so you don't get the same holy pattern every time you set it down. Also, okay, sorry about that, I'm back. I had to feed the beast, otherwise she won't shut up. It's kind of our system. But, so we have brushes, the natural sea sponge guy. I also like to use the cheap foam brush on a stick. You get these at the craft store too. Super cheap, and they come in different sizes too. You can get them wider if you have a large area to cover. I usually use them for large flat surfaces or things that I think might ruin my brushes. I'm pretty hard on my brushes, but there's some things I don't even want to use those for. So I pull out one of these, and if it gets ripped apart or whatever, I don't care. I trash it and get another one. They're also nice because they hold a lot of paint. So if you have something that you need a lot of coverage for, these are kind of handy to have. I also use something similar, but for smaller areas, especially highlighting. And we're going to go over this a little more in a second, because somebody taught me this, and I want to kind of go over that. But blister pack foam, the little foam pieces they put in your cases when you buy miniatures, keep that shit. It's really handy. This is actually came out of the little transport trays, like for carrying cases. You can see that. These foam trays sometimes will have them in, especially if you can customize the shape of each section so it fits your models. That's what I have right here. It's a big block that came out of one of those. And I'm keeping that because I like to use these for applying small details to things. Like I said, we'll go over that. But I think that's it. I think that covers everything that I use to apply paint, the kind of paint I use, and yeah, that's it. Most of the sources of inspiration or education I have for my painting style really can't be pinpointed. I mean, I've been doing arts and crafts stuff since I was a kid, and I'd ask for like beading kits to make jewelry for Christmas, or the artist palettes or something like that, instead of something cool and fun like remote control cars or something. In hindsight, that might have been a mistake. Anyways, but there are two people that I know for sure that I use some of their techniques from. One being Donna Dewberry, and that name probably doesn't sound familiar to anybody else. Maybe your mom or your grandma would know who Donna Dewberry is, but she had a program on public television. I don't know, it probably still runs, but I saw it, 10, 15 years ago, probably 15, 20, I don't know, time flies. She would kind of teach people, and I think you know, her tagline was that she could teach anybody how to paint. What she didn't tell you is that she would only teach you how to paint flowers and fruit. Maybe she's branched out by now. I hope she's branched out by now. But her kind of philosophy, and I'm sure it's not hers, a lot of people do this, was to kind of highlight and shade all in one stroke. She kind of coins it as one stroke painting. One second. Something I forgot to mention in my supplies part, foam plates. Disposable foam plates. That's what I use as my palette. Anyway, back on track. She would teach people to load up their brushes with 2 colors of paint. And I'll show you that real quick. That way, as you're painting, if you move your brush in a certain pattern, I don't have really good colors here right now, it would do all the highlighting and shading for you. So it would look like you spent all this time and effort into making a rose, when really it only took you 5 or 6 strokes from your paintbrush. So if you want to look her up, she does have free tutorials right now. But not many. A lot of it's you gotta buy shit, and it's so over marketed right now. I don't know. I'll just tell you what she says. So you put 2 colors of paint. One's pink, one's red, and then I should move the camera. 1 second. Okay, so what Donna Dewberry says, if you put down 2 colors, and I'm doing a red and an orange, come on, and you load one side of your brush in one color, and the other half of the brush in another color, if you go through and kind of blend it together a little bit, even just the blending, hopefully you can see, looks kind of cool. So if I take my brush that's loaded with these 2 colors and form a little arc. Sorry, that was my phone. Reload it and then form another arch. I can make flower petals that are already shaded for me. This brush is probably a little too big for this. But at least you'll get an idea. This is also not good paper for painting, so it's sucking up a lot of paint all at once. So it's kind of cheesy looking, I know, but hopefully you can see kind of gradation between the orange and the red. Some of the other stroke techniques she would teach people were like pressing down and then wiggling your brush. I think those were supposed to be iris petals, or if you loaded up your brush with yellow and green, it'd make a neat leaf. I don't know. I'm just kind of fooling around now. But I liked, stay in frame, I liked how simple it was, because it does, you know, kind of do the blending for you. So this is, like, her technique is called one-stroke painting, but it doesn't have to technically be a brush stroke. You can also load up a sponge or something with 2 different colors, so that we have 2 colors on our piece, or on our sponge, and then, like, dab it onto your terrain or whatever, or if you wanted to do highlights, like dry brushing or something, using 2 colors. It gives a little more variation to your color scheme than just using one highlight color. And that's kind of what I think helps make, like, rocks or grassy areas look more believable. So hopefully that made sense. I'm terrible at explaining it, and I don't expect you to go start painting flowers or anything, but just the concept of taking 2 different colors of paint and loading your brush and or sponge with it, I think will come in handy. And in the next video, when we start applying these techniques to an actual piece, you'll kind of see what I mean, or at least I'll point out kind of the effect I'm going for when we start mixing paint like that. So another person that taught me a cool little trick that I remember who it is, because I actually went to a seminar at Adepticon. If you've never been, they have workshops teaching people things in conjunction with, you know, all the tournaments going on. So I don't play in tournaments. I don't care to learn how to do wargaming. So I would go along with my husband, and he would play in games, and I would learn how to paint or build or whatever the hell else I was trying to do at the time. So I went to a seminar put on by Todd Swanson, and that name probably rings a few more bells than Donna Dewberry does. He is a very, very talented miniature painter. I couldn't even tell you how many Golden Demons he's won and all that stuff. Absolutely amazing. He sculpts as well. Very, very good and talented person in the industry or the hobby. I actually saw him, it's been a while, it's been 4 years maybe more, I don't remember. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but he has a tutorial walkthrough with miniaturementor.com. They went, I assume, to his house, and he went through his steps to paint the Plague Lord Festus, or whatever he did. If you've never watched Miniature Mentor DVDs before, I would highly recommend them. That's the only one I've ever seen, but it is top-notch. They're using high-definition cameras. There's a guy there besides the person doing the tutorial, so he's thinking of questions that might come up that the person who's doing the craft didn't cover. Sometimes people that make it gloss over something that they don't think is important, but someone outside looking in may still have that question. So it's nice to have the dialogue going on instead of just having one person standing there talking to a camera. But It is so crisp and so clear that you can see the paint dry, and he goes through the whole process, his blending techniques, which is absolutely beautiful, his weathering on the miniature and all this stuff. So I would highly recommend that. I got it for free because I went to the workshop with him, and really it's only like an hour long workshop or two, I don't remember. We didn't have that much time to go over everything, but one thing he went over was how to do miniature rust divots or whatever in armor, and that's when he talked about blister pack foam. The density of this foam is pretty compact. The little air pockets in it are small, and the material around each little air pocket is thin. So if you load this texture up with paint, you're going to get little small dots stamped onto your piece. I usually don't do that anymore unless I'm actually making rust or mud splatter at the bottom of a building. What I do like to do is load one of these bad boys up and remove a lot of the paint like you would with dry brushing, which I'm not going to go over because I hope a lot of you already know how to dry brush. It's a very common miniature painting technique. Full-scale painting technique probably too. I don't do a lot of full-scale painting anymore. And then I would use this to highlight a texture on a piece, and I will show you that next. So this is just a bridge for an aquarium. It's like the little decorations you can buy in the pet store. My sister gave it to me in case I could use it for anything, and I'm not quite sure what is going to happen with it yet. But we'll play with it today, trying out this blister pack foam highlighting thing. So right now it's just kind of like a dingy green with some yellow on it. We'll pretend like we want a little more definition, a little more highlight on these stairs. So I'm going to just dab a little bit of white paint onto my foam and then brush a lot of it off. So there's just a little amount of paint on the tip of this foam. Then I am going to kind of gently stroke down on these stairs, maybe do a couple circular motions because I don't want any straight lines on the piece. And what I'm aiming for is to just hit the highest points of the bridge and the stones, or the stairs and the stones. And what this is doing is kind of blending the start of the paint with the undercoat that's already there, the yellows and the greens. And just by the nature of how the foam is hitting the corner, more paint ends up getting scraped off near the tip of the stairs, so that ends up a brighter white. So it's almost like it's blending into the layer behind it. And there are times I do this and the completed piece almost looks airbrushed. I'm really not doing that much blending. It's kind of the nature of how you're applying your paint. Hopefully we can get a good view of this. There's a little bit of white that's been added to the tips of the stairs and the stones. If we look at the top here, I applied white to this side but not this side. And hopefully you can see a little bit of a difference. I don't really like how it turned out on this flat part, but like these are the stairs we highlighted versus the other side. See if I can get both in the frame at once. So I do this a lot. It's kind of how I highlight most of my textures, is using a very fine compressed chunk of foam and white or ivory or you know, whatever color I happen to be highlighting with. You'll see me use that technique when we work on the spawning pool next time, so you'll get a little more sense of what leads up to that and what it looks like without the highlight, and then how it blends from, you know, just the base color to the bright white at the end. There's not a lot of surface texture to get that just on this piece, but hopefully you kind of get an idea what I'm talking about. That way, when I reference it in the next video, I don't have to go through the whole step. You have a solid, you know, background of what I kind of do. So one more thing I'd like to kind of talk about before we part ways here. I was first introduced to this little subculture of miniature gaming. My husband kind of reeled me in with painting miniatures first. Like I said, I already was kind of into painting stuff anyway. He just gave me one of these little tiny dudes to play with. And at the time, when he was teaching me the fundamentals of painting little dudes, he described mixing in white paint with your base color to be a highlight and black paint to be a shadow. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. It works. I just don't care for that style anymore. I have a couple minis that I painted way back in the day, and I'm going to put more lights on here, so hopefully you can see it better. This is a chick I did. I really like dragons, so of course it's a chick with a dragon that I just highlighted with whites. Probably mixed in some white with that red on his scales, and then used a pure white to highlight just a couple of them. And like her cloak gets highlighted to white. I know there's shadows, it's hard to see. But the colors look so muted. Like, it isn't very vibrant, or even from afar, I don't know. The dragon almost looks pink. And I don't know, I just don't like it anymore. What I rather would see is, and I'm sure I read this somewhere or saw someone else do it, is highlighting with the color next to it. Like if you have the rainbow and your main color is red, using orange to mix in with your red to highlight it, and shading up to orange to be your highlight. I think pieces just look a little more saturated that way. They're very vibrant and lively, and usually white doesn't highlight anything. It's another color. So that's kind of my theory these days, is using the color schemes to highlight and shade things. Here's a little guy I did also a long time ago, but after I was playing with colors a little bit more. So his cloak is a main color of, you know, like a medium blue, but in his folds and the recesses of the cape, I shaded with purple. And I'm sure I just mixed white in with that blue to do the highlights on the creases and stuff. But it's still a blue. It's not all the way up to pure white, because that'd be ugly. So yeah, that's kind of my theory these days on choosing my colors. So I usually start with the shadow color, like a purple, and then I put on the main color that I want the overall appearance to trigger in your mind. Like, oh, that wall is blue. You know, it's got purple shadows on it and stuff, but if you just saw it for a split second, you think it's blue. And then either using a lighter blue to highlight it, you could even shift it the next color over into green. You know, it's kind of how comfortable you are with throwing colors at your piece. By no means make it, you know, outrageous or tacky, because no one wants that. But don't be afraid to play with colors, especially in rocks. Now this is just a personal opinion, because I've looked at a lot of terrain over the years, but the generic gray granite, GGG, bothers me. And when I mean generic gray granite, I'm talking about painting it black, putting on gray, and then putting on white. So there's, you know, this monochrome grayscale rock. And I know you've seen it, everybody does it. There's nothing wrong with everybody doing it. But I'm sick of it. I want people to be creative, and I know it's quick and I know it's easy, but it's really not that hard to add another color in there, or when you're done, put a brown wash over it so that it at least looks dirty. I don't know. Go outside, pick up a rock, and show me one that's just gray, that doesn't have flecks of brown in it, or maybe has a bluish tint to it, like slate. I've done rocks with purple in it, and it doesn't even have to be like super fantasy outrageous. I've done that too, but adding colors to something that's supposed to appear gray is not wrong. I think it helps things look natural. It's really hard to find natural occurring things that are pure white, pure black, or, you know, pure gray. So don't be afraid just to play around with adding things into your paint that might seem weird. And rocks, I don't know, I couldn't even give you a good recipe to paint rocks. I know you have one that's black, gray, white. I don't have something to tell you to use instead. Quite honestly, because every time I do rocks, I'm throwing so much shit at it, and it won't look good, and it won't look good, so I go over it, maybe add this, maybe this will work, maybe this will save it so I don't have to remake it and, you know, paint it again. So my end product is layers and layers of mistakes that I'm just trying to save so I don't have to build it again. sometimes it ends up looking pretty good. I couldn't tell you what combination of all the mistakes got it to be there. So it's just a thought to throw out there. If you have free time, or if you're also sick of doing everything in black, white, and gray, I would suggest first starting with blue, and then maybe going from there and trying something else, or, just flicking speckles of paint of random colors on your generic grays. Just an idea. Alright, I'm sick of talking. Next time we will do some hands-on painting of that spawning pool. And that'll be a little more fun. So, thank you for watching. We got the basics down. Next time, we'll do something cool. Promise. Thanks. Bye. This is gonna be weird, and I might screw it up a lot, but you asked for it, so it's your own fault. Sorry. Every time I try to make a video, I get distracted. We have natural sea sponge. That's the word, sponge. And it's not because I have any kind of I was gonna say something else and I forgot. What the fuck was it? Oh! I remembered. You wanna say hi to people? Hi, kitty. Like, don't want lunch, bitch. I talk too much.